Hello there, and welcome to this episode on Mid-South Wrestling. And on this episode, we'll look at July 5th, 1984. That's coming up right after this. Here we go, Mid-South Wrestling, July 5th, 1984. We're going to look at the episode, and I think, Rodney, this would be episode 252. Am I correct about, is that going to be episode 252 on this look back at Mid-South Wrestling?
252, it is a big one. We got the first appearance of the PYT, Norvell, Austin, Coco Beware, and a whole lot more. First off, we open the show up. It is Boyd Pierce, Bill Watts. Jim Ross is at ringside with Jim Cornette as he introduces his brand new bodyguard, Mr. Wrestling 2. Now, after this point, Wrestling 2 has been the protege of Mr. Wrestling, and now Mr. Wrestling has now since left, apparently, because on this particular show, especially at the end of last week's show, Bill Watts announced that Mr. Wrestling 1 was going to go against Mr. Wrestling 2, and that doesn't happen because I believe Mr. Wrestling, the original Mr. Wrestling 2, has left the arena, the area. So we start out with Jim Cornette introducing his brand new bodyguard, Mr. Wrestling 2, and then it leads to our first match. And right off the bat, the PYT, Coco Beware, and Norvell Austin face the Midnight Express. And what a tremendous team. Just a tremendous match right off the bat. The people already responding to Coco Ware and Norvell Austin. Now, think about this. In the ring, you got Dennis Condrey and you got Norvell Austin, who are both original members of the Midnight Express.
Yeah.
With Randy Rose from the Southeastern days. So you got people, all four of these men know each other. They know each other well. This could have been a match that just stood alone without what all they did in the match. This match really could have stood alone. And the people already behind the PYT.
And if I'm not mistaken, didn't Coco Beware and Bobby Eaton team with each other in Memphis?
They most certainly did. They sure did. The former Southern Tag Team Champions for sure. Tremendous match. Ends up Coco Ware just throwing drop kick after drop kick. Finally drop kicks Dennis Condrey right into the referee. The referee goes out of the ring. Referee was Ron West, of course. Outside was Cornette and his bodyguard. Dennis Condrey stretches out Coco Beware, Mr. Wrestling 2, up on the top rope, and from the other side, here comes the hacksaw, Jim Duggan, to body slam him off the top rope. And when he grabs a hold of him, he slams him off the top rope, snatches the mask. The mask comes off. And, of course, he's there for all to see after he's been unmasked. During this whole situation, the camera misses it altogether. But actually, it was Coco Ware pinning Dennis Condrey for the PYT that beat the Midnight Express right off the bat. But pretty much overshadowed by the fact that Mr. Wrestling 2 was unmasked by Jim Duggan.
And fairly easy. He got slammed off the top rope and lost his mask that way.
You know, you should tighten your mask up when you do that.
Evidently,
if you had it tightened up, it would have just stretched. It would have been like a yoke, one of those punching bags, you know, with the head we used to have with the rubber band on it.
I definitely believe this is a lesson to be learned. If you're a masked wrestler, make sure that your mask is tightened on so when you get slammed, you don't get slammed out of it.
So. Oh, in this match, Cornette takes a drop kick off from the ring apron. It was fantastic. Cornette was just fantastic. When I was looking and I noticed, we even had fans, or we didn't. They had fans from Chattanooga, Tennessee, sitting on the front row. Yeah. We've seen them, and I think they were big fans of Bobby Eaton. I'm talking about Frankie, and I think her name was Liz from right here. I can't think of Frankie's last name right now, but I saw them right on the front. I said, "Hey, I know them." Right, they sit right down from us. We're right on the front row, down on the end. Then we have the first appearance of Hans Schroeder as he faces Steve Dr. Death Williams. Williams has the TV title medal with him, hangs it up on the post. Schroeder, tremendously big man, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, of course, he catches it catching him with the stampede. Terry Taylor comes out. He wants that battle. And of course, and Williams are calling out. He calls Terry Taylor a punk to his face, and then he finally says, "If you're not," he said, "You're not. I was man enough to take it from Khrushchev. You've got to be man enough to take it from me." And then pushes and knocks Terry Taylor down, which gets ready for their confrontation down the road between Terry Taylor and Steve Dr. Death Williams. Later on, we have a new tag team, Del Vesey and Bob Brown. And later on, as the careers evolve, they become the Alaskan Hunters. And this time they're going to be going against Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers, the fantastic, tremendous match. Something kind of happened. I believe Dad might have set this match up because I believe him and Bob Brown might have had some words. I think he might have messed something up. If you noticed, Dad gave him a little and one of those going. Eventually, it was the fantastic winning that one.
I have to make one.
Sure.
One. It was either the ropes were really too loose at the TV station, or people had a hard time working the ropes, hitting the ropes, because Bob Brown had a horrible time hitting them ropes, and
they were a little loose.
I don't know, and maybe it was a ring problem. It wasn't a wrestling.
Yeah, they were a little loose, and that happened through the time, especially when you had all the action with the big guys. I mean, you had Hercules Hernandez up on the top rope. You had Jim Duggan in there. You had 6 guys in the ring at the same time. So ropes probably needed to be tightened up. They very rarely they were. As the hour goes on, the ropes just keep getting looser and looser through the whole show, it seemed like. Then we had Buddy Landell against Sonny King. And once again, what a tremendous match. And I mean, this looks like a fight. At one point, Landell and Sonny King in the corner, I mean, they were exchanging some pretty good blows in that. In the end, it was, excuse me?
They were doing.
I mean,
they were throwing them in there.
I mean, it looked like a full-fledged, just knock-down, drag-out fight. Landell, like I said, he probably was no better than Landell at this point. I mean, he was probably at the top of his career as far as I'm concerned, as far as ability goes. Well, in this, Landell having troubles. Here comes Butch Reed with the chair, and I'm not sure where this chair came from. Apparently, it might have been sitting up underneath the bleachers somewhere. I don't know. They had to dig this thing up.
I think it must have been sitting way out in the field. They used to have the fair there at Shreveport. That building was with the fairgrounds. I think it must have been sitting out there for years upon years.
We were sitting there. We wonder what that old dilapidated looking old chair is. They need to throw that in the garbage. That's in bad shape. Well, anyway, Butch Reed hits Sonny King over the head with this wooden chair, and the top of it breaks over Sonny King's head. Then he backs the seat part and he presses it over. And I mean, it shatters into splinters. I believe some of the splinters caught Sonny King at the right below his eye. Luckily, he didn't hit him in the eye. But yeah, and then it was it was something to watch. And we're thinking, from now on, if we're going to hit someone with a chair, don't take the old one in the back. Get a new one. Get the new one. We were sitting in metal ones. He would have been better off than the chair. But I guess they want to destroy it. But like I said, splinter almost, I think, and you can see when Sonny King was at the end, you could see this popping up right around up underneath his eye. Yeah. And he's very lucky it could have hit him right in the eye.
Yes.
In the next match, we have the introduction of the wrestler formerly known as Mr. Wrestling 2, as he introduces himself as Hercules Hernandez, has a tremendous match with Mike Jackson. In the end, it was him catching Mike Jackson, Hercules Hernandez, catching Mike Jackson with power slam, and then he catches him with an elbow, and that was the end.
You got to give Mike Jackson credit. He was very good at what he did.
Absolutely.
All his stuff looked good. Everything he did looked good. Every time he's been on Mid-South Wrestling, he's had a great match with somebody.
Tremendous match. I don't think I've ever really seen Mike Jackson in a bad match. No. In all honesty. And the thing about it, in this situation, you would have thought Cornette would have been out there with Hernandez, but he wasn't. I thought that was odd. It just seemed odd just because he just introduced him as his bodyguard earlier in the show and he wasn't out there. But anyway, Who am I? I don't know.
Evidently, he didn't need his body guarded during that match.
He didn't need it. He didn't need any direction. He had it all under control, I guess. So there we have it. Hercules Hernandez over Mike Jackson. Then we have one of our favorites, the big cat, Ernie Ladd. And it's always, you got to love Ernie. You got to Ernie Ladd. He's going against a guy almost as big as he was. I was talking about Steve Brinson. As far as ability, maybe not in the same caliber as Ernie Ladd. But once again, Ernie Ladd starts the match off, and he's starting on TA again. I mean, he's asking, he's telling him that he should get with his lawyers and figure out how he just hand the North American Heavyweight Championship over to him. And Ernie is just brilliant, as always. We love Ernie Ladd. In the end, it was Steve Brinson having problems with Ernie Ladd, catches the big foot to the face, and then the double leg drop, and it's Ernie Ladd over Steve Brinson. Crusher Khrushchev against Rick McCord. Now, Rick McCord, I believe, primarily came out of the Carolinas, if I'm not mistaken. And he was making his first appearance with Mid-South Wrestling there. McCord, actually, really good wrestler. He really was a great wrestler and just tremendous ability. And this time he was going against Crusher Khrushchev. In the end, it was Khrushchev winning with a standing backbreaker. Then we have a big video with Magnum TA as he got the board to be wild with Stephen Wolf as they had and highlighted Magnum TA. Now, I want to stop right here just for a quick minute as we get to the end of the program. But there's people that we're noticing are missing from the program. Number one, the Junkyard Dog. Number two, Rock and Roll Express. They are both and have not been on the shows for the last few weeks. They've been seen in videos from the Superdome, but at this time, the Rock and Roll Express, if I'm not mistaken, have been back to Memphis. Yeah. That's because of the appearance of the PYT and of the Fantastics. So, and of course, everything building for the Rock and Roll Express. A match that happened that no one knew about. A loser leave Mid-South match in Hammond, Louisiana, between the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, inside the steel cage, a match that really should have been broadcast for all to hear. In Superdomes or, I don't know, Houston somewhere. But this happened in Hammond, Louisiana. It was the greatest, let's just say the Rock and Roll they got shafted. Let's just say in that with cornet and ropes and inside of a steel cage, and the Rock and Roll Express loses a loser leave town match. That's not mentioned for a few more shows.
It's never mentioned why the Rock and Roll Express is gone.
No, never say anything about it. They're just disappeared. They just disappeared.
You know, they may have said a little blurb that they lost a loser leave town match in Hammond, Louisiana, and you're thinking, what?
There's no video of the match. There's no interviews of them saying we're coming back. There's nothing. It's just dry. And I'm not sure if they did that on purpose so that it wouldn't take away from the other opponents that we're going to have. Maybe people would be still waiting for the Rock and Roll to come back to go against the instead of wanting to see against the PYT or against the Fantastics or against Jim Duggan and Terry Taylor or whoever else they might have had him against. But these people are just conspicuous by their action. And another's a Junkyard Dog, which I do believe already has made his exit as he went to work for the WWE. Or at that time, WWF. In fact, the Superdome is coming up in August, which is only a month away. One of the matches were going to be the Midnight Express against Dusty Rhodes and the Junkyard Dog. Well, in that case, Junkyard Dog does not show and has to have a substitution. We'll talk about that in the next few shows. But yeah, two big people, really, two big stars conspicuous by the absence is Junkyard Dog and Rock and Roll Express. And there's reasons, because Rock and Roll's back in Memphis because Jarrett wanted his talent back, some of his talent back. And then the Junkyard Dog already was, I think there were some problems there beforehand, and already had signed with Vince McMahon in the WWF. Last of the show has Crusher Khrushchev and Bill Watts. And Watts is out there interviewing Crusher Khrushchev, who is talking about his match coming up next week with Sonny King. And he also talks about the medal. And then, of course, that's the end of the show, which leads us to next week's show number 253. And like I said, it only gets better from here. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger as weeks go by. And as we head into yet another Superdome some 2 months later in August, and then that one's coming up, and we'll cover that and much more on the next edition of Pro Wrestling Inside and Out.
All right, so join us for Mid-South Wrestling. We will talk about the more of the excitement of Mid-South Wrestling. We will see you next week right here on Mid-South Wrestling.